Welcome to the Matthew Lyle Show. It's your host, Matthew Lyle, joined today by the normal guest. I guess that's what we're going to call him now, Michael Buckheister. How you doing today, sir?
Man, I am on cloud nine since my Kansas City Chiefs finally made it to the Super Bowl after, 50-plus years. Big things happen like over there, so I'm pretty good, man. The real question is, how are you today? How was your day?
I'm choking, apparently. I'm good, man. I'm good. I don't have the same things to be excited about. I mean, we do. It is nice to say, and this is not this may sound like a humble brag, but as a Patriots fan, it's nice to go stress-free into the Super Bowl. Haven't had that in a couple years since the Panthers-Broncos, if I'm not mistaken. I'm sorry, I had to cough that up there. That sounds horrible. Pause that for a second, if we will. But no, I'm excited to sit down. What is it, 2 Sundays from now?
Yep, 2 weeks.
Sit down and get to watch what I hope is an offensive juggernaut. Now, I don't think we're going to get the Packers, the Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes fit that I thought we were going to.
Which would have been nice. But I think we're going to get still explosive offenses. I think we're going to get Patrick Mahomes. You get the 49ers run game. I don't know how much you're going to get from Garoppolo. I don't know how much you need from Garoppolo. Here's what I'm afraid of, Mike, and I don't want to rain on your parade because this isn't Chief specific. This is just what as a guy who loves offenses. The last couple of years, if you've sit down to watch the high-powered offenses, you've been disappointed. Last year, Sean McVay came in with, who could stop Goff, who could stop Gurley, who could stop this young wizard of offenses. They score 3 points. A couple years. About 100%.
A couple years prior to that, you got the Julio Jones, Matt Ryan offensive show. Now, it did yield some points. It did turn into somewhat offensive of a show. Now, granted, they weren't offensive enough because they weren't able to pull that Super Bowl out, but they still end up coming away a loser. You look at that Broncos team with Peyton Manning that set all the records. They got embarrassed by Seattle.
Right.
And then you go back a little further to that Patriots team. And that's what kind of concerns me is if you look, all those teams had a strong front four, and that's the ability of the 49ers.
Right.
We can dive into this a little more. I don't want to throw out Super Bowl picks quite yet, but right now I'm a little concerned. If I was a Chiefs fan, or since I am an offensive fan or offense scheme fan, that it's going to be muddied up by a run game on one side and a strong pass rush on the other. I don't want to talk X's and O's much, Mike, right now because we got 2 weeks Super Bowl madness.
Exactly.
And I mean, a lot of things can happen over the next couple of weeks, but as of right now, day after you won, and if I'm not mistaken, isn't the AFC Championship game called the Lamar Hunt Trophy, named after the founder of the Chiefs? So It's gone back home for the. Well, let me ask you this though, not to get sidetracked, but we already are. Is this the first time they've won the Lamar Hunt Trophy? I know they've made it to the Super Bowl before, but I doubt it was called the Lamar Hunt Trophy in Super Bowl 5 or 1 or whatever it was.
Yeah, I think it was renamed the Lamar Hunt Trophy after he passed away a couple years ago. So,
okay. So y'all have never won it.
But I mean, I could be totally wrong, and it could have been called the Lamar Hunt Trophy for the last 45 years. But regardless, the Chiefs have never won the Lamar Hunt Trophy.
I'll be honest with you. I don't. Now, was the last Super Bowl 1, or have you guys made it to the Super Bowl since then?
Super Bowl 2, because I believe the first 2 Super Bowls were Packers versus Chiefs.
We'll have to look on this, or we'll get picked alive by anybody listening trying to fact check this. But either way, the point remains: typically, you don't get a monumental trophy named after you. Often, while you're still alive. Typically, definitely not when you're still Now I know Lamar Hunt was an owner, so that's a little different. But like you don't get named, like coaches typically don't get trophies named after them while they're still coaching.
Well, he was also one of the biggest influence of making the NFL what we know today, combining the NFC and the AFC.
You know, I heard a really cool story, and I don't want to butcher it because I don't want to take anything away from it. But apparently Lamar Hunt was wanting to start an NFL team, and they told him no. And he tried to buy an NFL team, and all the owners said that, hey, we're not selling.
Right.
And then one owner made a remark like, hey, this thing must be popular. You're like the sixth person who's approached me to buy this team. And so Lamar Hunt got the idea to call those other six owners and start a league, which became the AFL. And then, the merger occurred, and here we are, 54 Super Bowl later. So yeah, not only is I would say he's the founding member of the AFL, he had a huge hand in making the NFL what it is today.
Right. And just to fact check here, I did pull up all the Super Bowl games.
Okay.
Games here. The Green Bay Packers and the Kansas City Chiefs were the first Super Bowl, like obviously Super Bowl I. Super Bowl II was the Packers and the Oakland Raiders, actually.
So has the Chiefs made it since that moment?
Yeah, so they made Super Bowl IV in 1970 versus the Minnesota Vikings.
Okay. So obviously they haven't won any of those, right? Did they win Super Bowl IV?
I thought I saw a stat that they were 1-1, but yes, they did win Super Bowl IV over the Vikings.
Okay, so they do have a ring. So
yeah.
One, yeah. And I mean, it's hard to believe because, you have some older fans, but for mine and your sake, Mike, unless you were a diehard fan when you were under 10, which I don't know how diehard of a fan a 7-year-old can be. I mean, they can be that, but I don't know how well it translates into adulthood. Like
I would say I started really becoming a fan about 14 years old when I started playing high school ball.
Yeah, it really clicks in around 10 to 14. You start remembering it. Like I'm a huge Kentucky fan. Even though I watched the 96 championship, the first one that I truly remember, that I truly hold on to, was the 98 one, and I was 9. So, yeah. It feels weird because
you are an exception, though.
It feels weird because we watched the Steelers win 2 Super Bowls in the last 13 years, to get them to 6. We saw the Patriots essentially win 6 right in front of our eyes.
Yeah.
It's hard to believe that if the 49ers, and I guess because the Cowboys have 5 rings too, but they're so blatantly in your face that every year we're going to win our 6th, that you kind of forget that if the 49ers win, they too will have 6.
Yeah.
Like that blows my mind. I put that up there with often forgetting that the Giants have 4 rings.
Yeah.
Like it's easy.
Yeah, like we all like to forget about the Giants because Eli Manning is such an average quarterback that the 2 Super Bowls that he won, he beat the
Patriots both, yeah.
Patriots, and then the other Patriots team he beat. I think they slid into the playoffs, maybe.
Yeah, I don't really recall those because you try to put those out of your mind, and it I don't know. Like I don't want to take away from what you're doing because right now is a feeling that I don't know how many fans. Maybe on another show we can sit back and look on how many Super Bowl fans have got to get, maybe the Falcons a couple years ago when they lost. But you know what I'm saying? Like, if you look, it's been the Patriots, it's been the Broncos, it's been the Steelers, it's been teams that their fan base has experienced Super Bowls.
Right.
Probably the Eagles 2 years ago is the only one.
Yeah,
right?
because if you look at back at that Eagles Super Bowl, that they were such on a high flying offense, and then their Carson Wentz tears his ACL, and like, oh no, we have Nick Folk, our season's over, and then the next thing Nick Folk, the Super Bowl MVP. So I mean, that's definitely got to be a memorable season for any.
Oh, definitely. I like to see teams win their first Super Bowls, and I know we're kind of running out of teams who haven't won a Super Bowl. So then the next logical step is to go to a team that hasn't been to a Super Bowl in a while or hasn't got to capture one. So
I think we're in a good spot here. But on a scale of 1 to 10, Mike, as of today, January 21st, how nervous are you?
I am nervous because the old saying always goes, you have to learn how to lose the big game before you learn how to win the big game. And what's sad about the NFL, the Chiefs can literally bring everybody back. Like every team can literally bring every person back. But if one ball bounces the other way in like week 6, your season's over. So since we haven't been there in so long, the culture is not there. This is only the second AFC game or championship game that we played in as long as I can remember, and it's been back-to-back years. So maybe yes, I'm nervous because of the team that we're playing, but I'm more nervous of the fact that we haven't been there since 1970. It reminds me a lot of our baseball team. When we haven't went to the World Series since '85, and then 2014, in 2013, we get beat in the World Series because we've never been there. We've never been that good. So,
all right, Mike, you're bogging the show down here with baseball talk. Let's not be that guy. But let's talk about what happened Sunday. So the Titans went out to, was it a 10-0 lead?
Yeah, they had a 10-point lead twice.
10-point lead twice, yeah. Because I was trying to recall, did they ever get to a 17-point lead? But it was 10-0. Y'all scored a touchdown. They scored a touchdown, and then it was really Patrick Mahomes' time.
Right.
At any time of that, because when we did this show, I don't think it was our show, Mike. I did the other show that you do. You seemed pretty confident that the Titans wouldn't be able to keep up with you guys. And I said the only way that the Titans were going to win was if it went into the fourth quarter 17-14. If it was something like that.
Right.
So you're sitting there, it's 10-0, but it's still early. And I mean, as somebody who just witnessed a 24-0 deficit and then won by a substantial amount, were you nervous at all during that game outside of the normal jitters? Like, I think every fan has a jitter that the unknown can happen or that if an injury happens. But as far as I say this again, Kentucky fan, lost to Evansville, that game's 40 minutes long. For 35 minutes of that game, I never thought we were going to lose. It was the final 5 minutes where I was like, ruh-roh.
Right.
So was there any of that part, even though it's so early, and football games are so long, I love them, but they are so long. Like especially if you're that team that has a lead. So was there any time where you were like, oh my?
When it was 10-0, and we went, so the Titans went down and scored I think it was a field goal their very first drive down the court or drive down the field. The Chiefs went 3 and out, and the Titans scored another quick touchdown to make it 10-0. I'm like, oh crap, here we go again. But then the Chiefs answered, and then the Titans answered right back. They were then up 17-7. I believe it was only like 5 or 6 minutes left in the second quarter. And I'm thinking here, shoot, the Chiefs better do something. That was when it was 17-14 with like 30 seconds left in the second quarter and the Chiefs are down. Like, I'm starting to get a little bit nervous. And then Patrick Mahomes makes that amazing run. Pretty good run for a quarterback for all you Lamar Jackson haters out there.
Look in the mirror, Mike.
But yeah. So at that point, I was really on the edge of my seat, and then Patrick Mahomes made that run, and then I kind of took a sigh of relief. I'm like, okay, we're fine.
So I do think
back in the second half too.
So I do imagine that the height of any stress that any Chiefs fan felt was when it was 10-0.
Yeah.
When it was 10-0, I imagine. No, I'm not saying that people were sweating. That if you were a Chiefs fan, I just imagine that any stress you felt, it was right there.
Well, here is what the problem is historically all year the Chiefs have been horrible in the first quarter. The second quarter has been their best quarter all year. So when we were down 10-7 after the first quarter, it was okay. But then the second quarter, when we only had 7 points, with like 30 seconds left to go in the first half, that is when it started to get nerve-wracking.
I got bumped out somehow, Mike. But I get what you're saying. So, yeah, I guess. I'm not a Chiefs fan, so I don't know what that felt. As a non-Chiefs fan, as just a connoisseur of football, I was like, oh, my, this could happen when it was 10-0 because that's what you want if you're the Titans. If you get up 10-0 and you get another stop. This isn't like the Texans who like to whip the ball around and Bill O'Brien's going to do crazy stuff and you're going to get your opportunities to strike back. If the Texans had got up 17-0, I imagine they're going to hit the RB button on the Xbox and hit true clock, where it's basically the ball gets snapped with 3 seconds left on the play clock.
Exactly.
And then if that happens, then even though you do got a whole half of football, you got Patrick Mahomes coming out of halftime with no touchdowns, no rhythm. So I was intrigued. But once the Chiefs scored, I was like, okay, that's a bummer if you're a Titans fan. And then the Titans scored, but I still wasn't sold back on the stock of the Titans at that point because that's not what you want to do if you're the Titans. Yeah, you don't want to score in 2 minutes and then leave your defense on the field to have to start Patrick Mahomes. Like, that's just not what I want to do if I'm a Titans fan. And we saw that's what happened.
Yeah, the one biggest thing that really shot the Titans in the foot, I think, wasn't the fact that the Chiefs drove the ball first in the third quarter. I think it was like a 6 or 7 minute drive. It was a long drive. Yes, they held him out of the end zone, but then they didn't score after that. And I think that killed all the momentum that they could possibly have had.
Yeah, and Belichick's made half his, I don't want to say half, but made a big portion of his success off doing the old double whammy of scoring under 2 minutes of the first half, and then getting the ball back to start the second half.
Yeah,
because essentially you can have a 14-point turnaround. So even a 14-point deficit, if played right, by the time the team gets the ball back, it'll be a tied game.
Right.
And that's a huge mental edge. So they move on. I don't think it was ever in doubt after that 10-0, at least to me, when it was here they are. We're going to the other game that did not feel very close at all. Like the Packers 49ers, that game was not close at all. Quick recap, and if you're listening to this at all, you probably watched the game. A quick recap. The 49ers went into halftime, 27-0. They were running all over them. My dude, Mostert, had 3 touchdowns. Aaron Rodgers was, I want to say 6 for 9 with an interception. Some just not good numbers at all. Adams had maybe 1 catch. It wasn't a good look at all for them. And that's why had the most boring level of excitement, if that makes sense. I was on the edge of my seat, Mike, when Aaron Rodgers threw that touchdown to make it 20-34 with 8 minutes left. Now, the Packers defense couldn't do anything, and felt like it was a little reminiscent of a bigger version of what the Seahawks defense couldn't do when they wanted the ball back versus the Packers. But I was like, if they get a 3-and-out here and Aaron Rodgers gets the ball back in his hands, 6 minutes left, now we're talking.
Yeah, that's the person that you want on the field with 14, if you're down 14 points with less than 8 minutes to go, right?
Dumbest call that I've seen, and I don't know what they were thinking. It was 34-7, I believe, was the score. Aaron Rodgers scores again. They go for 2. And I don't know why they went for 2, because even if they had gotten it, it would have just been 34-15. That's still a 19-point game. That's still 3 scores. Now, maybe their plan was to get it to 2 touchdowns and a field goal, but I just feel like that's an awful early to start chasing points, because what essentially had happened, Mike, and if we're going to live in this world where we never count Aaron Rodgers out, if we're going to live in this world where we don't give up on the Packers, if they would have kicked that extra point and made it 34-14, I believe so. Yeah, then when they scored again, if it had been 34-21,
right.
And even with the field goal that the 49ers added late, it was still just a 16-point game.
which still makes it 2 downs, two touchdowns, two touchdowns, 2-point conversions. That's a lot of twos, Mike. But I like if you told me I had to do that over trying to make 2 touchdowns and a field goal, mainly because you got to get 2 onside kicks there, and that's just darn near impossible. One's tough enough to get. So I didn't understand that because even the touchdown, even the extra point, 2-point conversion just didn't make it an appealing game. So I was a little confused on that. We are going to talk more, Mike. I know you look like you got a little something to say, but we do got to pay some bills. We got to keep the lights on in this place, Mike. So we're going to take a quick commercial break here on the Matthew Lyle Show. Your host, Matthew Lyle, will be right back. I'll wait till the 30 mark, just easy sake. For show. Welcome back to the Matthew Lyle Show. Your host, Matthew Lyle, joined by Michael Buckheister. We're back in here. We spent the first half talking NFL Super Bowl set, Super Bowl 54, February 2nd, 2020. You're going to get the Kansas City Chiefs representing the AFC and the San Francisco 49ers representing the NFC. Mike, we got 2 weeks. We're going to talk all kinds of football, all kinds of NFL. Even if you dabbled into the last show, we're really excited for the XFL. So there'll be plenty of football talk. It's not going anywhere. But I do want to have one last conversation about some football before we move on to some other sports things going on around here. Mike, who has more pressure on them to win the Super Bowl? I'm going to paint you a picture, and then I want your thoughts. So you got the Kansas City Chiefs, and yes, I do think there's a certain amount of pressure on Patrick Mahomes, arguably the best quarterback right now in the league, just based on pure quarterback play, not athleticism, not achievements, just pure snapping the ball, making a great pass. You have a coach in Andy Reid who arguably can't get it done. That's kind of been my stance, but we're not going to go into that. So you have the narratives around those two players. But fact remains, if they play good in the Super Bowl, whether or not they win or lose, the narrative, I think, if they can ignore that, will be we're Super Bowl again next year. The 49ers, they do have a coach who was on the other side of a 28-3 blown lead, and they're not really getting a lot of production out of Jimmy Garoppolo. Now, I know historically maybe they have, or typically they do, but this last game they did not. And eventually, I haven't looked at their contract, so maybe I'm talking at the side of my neck, but I know he got paid a lot. And the 49ers seem like that team, the 49ers the last time they lost, the Carolina Panthers when they lost to the Broncos, the Atlanta Falcons when they lost to the Patriots, where everything lined up perfect for them. And when they didn't get it done, guys still wanted to get paid, and big contracts held them back. Right. Now, I don't know when Patrick Mahomes gets paid, and you made a remark about that team returning next year. So in my mind, if they can ignore the outside chatter, inside the locker room still seems prepared to make another run next year, no matter what happens. The 49ers have all the smell of a team that if they don't win, that the contracts just line up perfect. And if they don't win it this year, that Jimmy G's contract will start to bite them. And if I'm not mistaken, I know this is small on the books compared, but just a little thing to keep in mind on top of Jimmy G's huge contract. Apparently their fullback gets paid more than the second and third highest paid fullbacks combined. So, I guess there's whatever this is, and then way above it is their fullback, which, like I said, I think that's $5 million. But still, when you got a quarterback making such a large percentage, as we've alluded to in other shows, Mike, you're going to have to start pinching pennies elsewhere. And on a team that doesn't, and I don't want to say they can't rely on Garoppolo, they don't rely on Garoppolo as much because of that running game. It almost, to me, feels like all the pressure is on the 49ers to do it this year. if you can step outside of being a Chiefs fan, who do you think has the most pressure?
Well, I have to go with Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs, not because I am a Chiefs fan. Like I'm throwing the bias out the window here, but the fact that we saw that the Kansas City Chiefs, they are a great team with Patrick Mahomes. They are above average team without Patrick Mahomes. So he is the key to the car. He is the car. He might even be the engine of the car. So like if he doesn't do well, the whole team will fail, and the Kansas City Chiefs will lose the Super Bowl. Now, on the flip side of that coin, you have Jimmy G. You know, what the 49ers lost 3 games this year, but they lost to the Falcons, the Seahawks, and the Seahawks again, maybe? No, the Ravens. And I believe in all of those games, except for the Ravens, which the Ravens game is kind of just like an asterisk. Anytime Jimmy G throws the ball over 35 times in the game, the 49ers lose. Anytime they throw under 25 times a game, the 49ers win. So there is no pressure on Jimmy G. His job is to say hike, turn left, hand the ball, turn right, hand the ball. Oh, maybe one play action. We alluded to this in the NFC Championship game. Him and Aaron Rodgers both had 6 completions in the first half. I believe Jimmy G had 44 yards and Aaron Rodgers had 49 yards. Jimmy G finished the game 6 of 8.
Well, okay. So yeah, if
there's no pressure on him to.
Well, okay, so not on him, but I'm talking about organization. Because Jimmy G's got his bread. Jimmy G's fine. But what happens, we've seen it before with all these other teams that make it there and tend to lose. I think there was like a 7-year stretch where teams that lost the Super Bowl didn't even make the playoffs the next year.
Yeah, you're 100% correct on that, yeah.
And I think, I can't speak on every one of those, but the 49ers just had that feel as an organization that Jimmy G's contract eats so much that guys are going to have to be cut or their guys are going to leave. Now, I don't know what the Chiefs look like, but and to your point, Mike, because you are right on the point you made about who's got the more pressure as far as when the players go to sleep the night before the Super Bowl, right. who's gonna have the more restless sleep. You would think it'd be Patrick Mahomes because you need him, but from an organizational standpoint, I almost feel more comfortable with that because let's pretend for a second offseason comes. Chiefs lose the Super Bowl. Guys want their money. You can let this cornerback go. You can let this running back go. You can let this lineman go. You can let this linebacker go and know that the cog of your engine, the thing that makes your team churn, even in a down year, is Patrick, whatever his middle name is, Mahomes, because he does that. He does so much. If I'm Jimmy Garoppolo, you said that he had those 6 for 8 passing. Let's just say, guys, I'm just making an example here. Let's just say to cut money, they have to get rid of that fullback.
See,
you think in today's NFL, getting rid of a fullback doesn't mean anything, but now that makes it tougher to stop that fullback creates those run lanes.
Right.
Now those running backs aren't running for 150 yards a game. Now you got to have it on Jimmy Garoppolo. Now you got to almost have a Patriots complete team. You got to have, 3 to 4 legit linemen, a couple of legit receivers, that pass rush. I just think if you're the 49ers, you got to have everybody playing on the same. It's like as beautiful it is when because like last night or Sunday night, they balled out, and I've seen them dominate other games. When they're on the same page, it's a beautiful work of art. It's like an orchestra, Mike. Like the line's blocking, the receivers are running their screens and their end arounds and their drags, and the defense is getting pressure, the cornerbacks. When I watch the Chiefs play and they're at the height of their game, it's almost like watching Slash from Guns N' Roses do a guitar solo. It's still a thing of beauty, but you watch and you say, okay, this is really because of one man. This is a one-man show. Even on the defense, even though Patrick Mahomes doesn't take a defensive snap, when he throws 4 touchdowns in a quarter, I don't know why I said corner, but in a quarter, that changes the way the defense has got to play.
You're right.
Because now the defense can take a little bit, the corners can be more aggressive. Tyrann Mathieu can come flying around like the honey badger he is, because if I give up this touchdown, so what? My quarterback's going to throw one in 45 seconds. I'll let you say what you were thinking.
Yeah, I like the point that you are making about maybe having to cut the fullback for the 49ers standpoint here, but look at those stats that I just rattled off. His last couple games, he was 6 for 8, 11 for 19, 18 for 22. You know what other quarterback can turn and hand the ball left and hand the ball right? The Tennessee's backup quarterback, Marcus Mariota. If push comes to shove and you have to cut costs, I think Jimmy G would be the first one to go because of the style of offense. They're great defense that have to have. They can easily find a quarterback that can do what they're doing right now. Teddy Bridgewater. He is a
problem with that is, Mike, I get the idea. If you're like, I love that. I love that thought process. Not necessarily just towards Jimmy G, but the thought process of I don't need a high-profile quarterback, that I trust my system so much that I can get a Ryan Tannehill. I can get the next guy to come out and do it. The problem is that the league values quarterbacks way too much. I haven't looked at the numbers, but if you cut Jimmy G the day after the Super Bowl, you're probably still paying that man for 3 or 4 more years, so the impact's going to remain the same.
Well, I agree with you on that point. So that is why you have to get a trade partner involved there. Maybe the Tennessee Titans are looking for their future quarterback, and Ryan Tannehill just isn't it. Hey,
I'll be honest with you. I would love to see a big time trade, but Mike, I do think you're talking a little crazy there about a team trade, just because you don't see it. I mean, because guys will hold on to. They typically don't hold on to guys too long. But if they got a young guy that is somewhat in their prime or somewhat has anything left in the tank, they hold on to it like it's a gallon of milk and there's a blizzard coming. That milk might be expired, Mike. That might not be any good milk. But if a blizzard's coming, we're holding on to it. And that's the way that teams like to hold on to their quarterback.
Let me bounce an idea off of you.
What's up, Mike?
What if, because Tom Brady says he is coming back for next season. He is open to playing with a different team. What if the San Francisco 49ers were in this financial situation? The New England Patriots said, hey, we could sign and trade Tom Brady to the San Francisco 49ers for Jimmy G.
Well, I mean, that might be the dumbest thing you've ever said, Mike. And because on so many levels, I mean, Jimmy G's still got a lot of upside. I think he's still got the future ahead of him. The NFL typically doesn't even work like that. Like, guys don't even think in that capacity. And I don't even know if Tom Brady wants that much of a pay cut. I think there was a report, I don't know how legitimate it was, I saw it in passing, that he was a little upset at what the Patriots offered him. And
he's 40 years old. Come on.
Right. I know. But, I mean, it's a weird situation. If you want to, I mean, we can dive in. Okay, let's do that, Mike. I'm going to buy this one. Where do you think Tom Brady will end up? Where do you think he should end up? And where would you like to see him end up? Pretty quick answers. Just give it. Let me just think.
I think if he plays, if he does, I think he should.
We're going to assume he plays. We're going to assume now. If you think, only thing I'm going to take from you, Mike, is on what he will do, what you think he will do, because you've already said he's not going to retire. So
I think he will end up in New England Patriots and give them one more season to find their quarterback in the draft. Kind of polish that diamond up a little bit, just because I think he feels like he owes the organization that because of what
he does have that great relationship with Robert Kraft. What do you want to see him do?
I want to see him retire because it is kind of like when Michael Jordan went to the Washington. I kind of felt like it tarnished his legacy, a little bit. I don't want to see Tom Brady in a different jersey, at all.
Like Joe Montana to the Chiefs?
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, as a Kansas City Chiefs fan, and I loved it for the namesake. He just wasn't the same guy.
Right. And so is your want, and so I'm going to assume since you picked retire for your want too. I imagine that's what you think he should do too.
Well, yeah. I mean, don't tarnish your legacy by playing too long.
Right. Okay. So my all three at the end of the day will be go back to the Patriots. I think he will go back to the Patriots. I think he should because pride set aside, him and Belichick are a safe bet. They can always rely on each other. Right. They've never won a Super Bowl without each other, and I don't think they should start now or start trying to. Some things in life you just don't try. Like if you got an amazing wife and the family's great, you got 3 or 4 kids, house on the corner, I don't care what lady at what bar winks at you. You go back to your wife. Like you don't, you don't think, hey, I've been in the gym. I got my life together. I bet I could snack somebody. No, you go back to the wife. Like you play it safe. And I think that's what Tom should do here. I think that's what he will do. As a Patriots fan, that's what I want him to do. But for fun, what I kind of want him to do, if I take off my Patriots fan hat or my Patriots hat and I just put on that little NFL hat that Rob Lowe was wearing the other night, I kind of want to see him at the Chargers. Warm weather.
Yeah.
Warm weather. He's a West Coast kid. He goes back to the West Coast. I know that team struggles, but let's not remember that team wasn't that far removed from a good playoff run. I mean, they were a wild
2 years ago.
Yeah, 2 years ago, they were a wild card team, but that's only because the Chiefs were so dominant that year. The Chiefs, I think, went, 13-3?
Yeah,
and they went
13-3, and the Chiefs won the tie.
Yeah, they had the tiebreaker.
The last game of the season.
I thought it was something like that. But, I mean, I just kind of want to see – I don't know what the status of that line is, but let's just say they can get Melvin Gordon figured out, strong run game. And I love Julian Edelman, but now you go to Hunter Henry, who's not Gronk, but, I mean, he's better than what they had after Gronk left. You got Mike Williams. You got Keenan Allen. Those are some good receivers. And their receiver, like Keenan Allen, can catch it short. Like Keenan Allen can catch a curl. He can sit in the zone. Maybe you go out there because Julian Edelman did get some trouble. Maybe the Patriots let him go for something cheap. So now you got that. I just think if we're talking if we're not talking legacy, if we're talking legacy, if we're talking what's going to get more rings on his finger, which is what he said he's cared about for the 20 years, and he's done nothing but show he cares about that, then he should go back to New England.
Right.
But if we just want to watch him and say, I don't think he could do it long. I think he could do it 1 year, and I think it would be like when Brett Favre went to Minnesota, and it would be like the first year when Peyton went to Denver. I don't even think they'd win the Super Bowl. I don't even know if they'd make it to the NFC, AFC Championship game. But I think we would see it would be fun to watch. Yeah. Just him getting to whip it around, no pressure, nobody yelling in his face. The coach there is nothing like Belichick. I forgot. They still got the Anthony Lynn guy. Whoever they got out there would be nothing like Belichick. It would just be them out there whipping the ball around to these young, athletic, elite receivers. I think it'd be fun to watch for a year. I don't know he might go 8 for 8, but I think he would show up. I think he'd put up 35-plus touchdowns.
Right. And just from a NFL standpoint, how awesome would that be to see Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady playing each other possibly 3 times in one season because they played twice in the division and possibly
and one of the playoffs.
And in the playoffs. That would be the ultimate passing of the torch, I think.
That would definitely be interesting. I don't know if that happens. I don't even know how well it would translate if it happened. That's just kind of as a football nerd of fan of Tom Brady. I'd like to see it. All right, we're going to take our last commercial break. When we get back, we're going to wrap up the show. We're going to talk a little nonsense with Mike Buckheister. This is the Matthew Lyle Show. And we're back. Matthew Lyle Show. It's the final segment. All downhill from here. Joined with Michael Buckheister, your host, Matthew Lyle. So we've been spending we spent the most of the majority talking just reckless football talk. And I don't think there's anything better than just 2 dudes talking reckless football talk. Like you would sit around and talk with your friends. That's what we do here. We just talk recklessly. We're going to end the show with a little different sport, Mike. We're going college basketball. This year, college basketball seems a little different. I feel like we've been moving in this direction for quite some time. we've been moving in this direction where with transfers and the way, like, Steph Curry and James Harden's kind of changed the game where everybody just wants to shoot as many threes or shoots the wildest shots possible, that the talent's been kind of even out. But there for the longest, there was still some dominance. There was still the haves and the haves not. And basically that haves was you had a big man. If you had a Carl Towns, if you had a Jahlil Okafor, if you had a Miles Turner, if you had a big guy, that's what separated you. Well, now that does not seem to be the case at all. Everybody loses. And it's almost like March Madness, but in January. Saturdays when the game came on, I said Baylor will probably lose to OK State. They edged it out. It was looking hairy there for a while. Yeah. I said, I bet this was a little bit before. I said I wouldn't be surprised if Duke lost to Clemson. They did. Wouldn't be surprised if Butler lost. They did. Wouldn't have been surprised if Florida State lost. They almost did. So we're getting – I don't even think there's any clear dominant team. And maybe I'm not ready to change on, like, the guards. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, the tide's changing from the likes of Kentucky, Duke, Kansas, North Carolina to Baylor, Gonzaga, San Diego State. Maybe I'm just in denial, and maybe those teams are secretly dominant, and I'm just missing it. But, like, I look at the top 10. Let me pull it up here real quick, Mike. You got Baylor number 1. I don't quite trust that. I look at let me go to 2. I got Gonzaga at number 2. We've talked before, Mike. That that WAC, whatever they're in, WCC, I don't trust that a bit more than anything because they're not really going to get a test between now and the Sweet 16.
Hang on one second. Is it San Diego State and Gonzaga in the same conference?
No. One's San Diego State's in like the Mountain West Conference, MWC. Okay. They're in there with Boise State.
Okay, so Gonzaga left that. They left that.
Yeah, it's hard to keep up with them. I kind of wish they would go like another one, or like a lot of these other smaller Western schools, like BYU and stuff, would join. Anyway, I digress. You do got Kansas at 3, and I feel like this could be their year. But Bill Self, he kind of underachieves out there. I can't trust San Diego State. Something tells me I can't trust Florida State. Maybe this is my hater showing, but I'm not sold on Chris Mack being the coach that can get you past the Sweet 16. Then you got Dayton. I hate to say this because it does give me an ulcer. I feel like this has the kind of feel that Duke would win the title, where you look at them, because, especially like last year, you look and you got Zion Williams and you got RJ Barrett and you got Cam Reddish and you got the top 3 players in the country and, are they going top 3 in the draft, yada, 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 and they don't get it done. This naturally feels like the year they won't get it done, but it also feels like the year that Coach K can be. As much as I hate Duke, I don't really hate him. As much as I don't like Duke, as much as I don't want Coach K to catch us up in titles, it does kind of feel like the year he's a great coach. It does kind of feel like the year he can just kind of sink his fingers and get his grip into this coach, into this team, and coach them the way he likes. And you got Villanova. I don't know. I feel like Fisher out there, or what's his name? I'm drawing a blank on his name out there at Villanova, is either national championship or out in the second round, and then Seton Hall rounds out the top 10. I'm not really sold on any of those teams winning. I look at this, and I don't know where I see a championship, Mike. This kind of feels like one of those years where I'm glad UConn's not good, because I feel like UConn would win it. UConn has those years, 2011, 2014, where they were like 5th seed and lower, and boom, winning the title. Of the 10 teams I told you, who do you like the best to win the title, Mike?
As much as this pains me to say,
you're going to say Kansas, aren't you?
I want to say Kansas, just because they haven't done it in so long. Yes, Bill Self has been very dominant in Big 12 conference play. They've won 17 Big 12 titles in a row ever since the Big 12 was formed in '96, I think it was. They have won every regular season or postseason title,
championship,
conference, and I cannot remember when their last NCAA title was, or when they really made like a deep run, like a deep dominant run. But their big man, Azubuike.
Yeah.
He is pretty darn good. I thought he was going to go to the NBA last year.
Well, I mean, I don't think he's made a shot outside of the paint. That might be the only reason he's – yeah, he does it, but in the NBA he might.
Right.
And, I don't want to make this about my favorite college team, but those are kind of the players I wish my favorite college team would get.
Right.
Some of those players that in high school, everybody says that kid's an NBA player. And then when he gets in college, be like, he's not quite the NBA player. But, I mean, it just doesn't really work out that way. You talk about Kansas. They won it in 2008, which would be 12 years ago by the time we get to this Final Four. They made the championship game in 2012 when Kentucky beat them.
Right.
I feel like they made the Final Four or Elite Eight the next year, or they made it close.
I don't know.
I think they made the Final Four in 2013 and lost to Michigan, if I'm not mistaken. But, yeah, since then, they've had some pretty uninspiring seasons. Mike, I made a post on Twitter. I said, if you're a fan of a top 25 basketball team this year, or even top 30, if you're a fan of a top 30 basketball team and you think your season's over, don't. If you're a fan of a top 30 team and you feel like your team's going to win the championship, don't. Because I look at this and I just don't know. And now maybe I am stealing a little bit of what I've seen this season and a little bit what I've seen in past seasons that make me say, okay, I can't quite trust Gonzaga. Yes, Gonzaga's not really giving me anything to say I can't trust them this season, but I've got 10 years of Gonzaga running through their conference only to get upset in the Sweet 16 in the NCAA tournament. Bill Self, I look at the great coaches, Bill Self, Tom Izzo, even John Calipari, even though that's my guy, a little nervous. These seem like the kind of years where you get upset in the Elite Eight because you happen to play a team that the name on the chest doesn't sound good, but they really are. I could see Kentucky losing to a Kansas State in the Elite Eight, and that gives me heartburn. I could see West Virginia making a Final Four, but I can't quite see Bob Huggins getting it done. What?
I don't think he's ever won the big game, has he?
No, not at all. He had some good years, I think, at Cincinnati where he came before. I believe that's where he was. And then he made the Final Four in 2010 when his best player broke his leg. But, yeah, I'm just looking, and so I'm torn. We talked about this with the Patriots at the beginning of the show. I feel like as a Kentucky fan, this is a year we could win the title. So as a Kentucky fan, I sit here and I say, want us to win the title. But if there was a year where I wouldn't hate it, or I shouldn't even say that. If there was every year I could manage, Mike, I could survive a first-round loss, I think it would be this year. Because let's just pretend your team loses in the first round. That means you get 4 more weeks of uncaring, great basketball.
Right.
Because when your favorite team's in it, let's say Kentucky's in the Elite Eight, right? Let's just say Kentucky wins the Elite Eight. They win. They're waiting. The next game comes on, and it's Louisville Duke, or it's Michigan State, Florida State. That matchup looks great. Because my team has already advanced, I find myself secretly rooting for the team that I think's worse. Or panicking if I see a team, or you start hoping for things that's going to benefit your team next, opposed to just sitting back and say, "Man, this is a great game."
Right.
So, Mike, right now, give me your champion. Give me your college basketball champion. Did you already do it? Did you already give me that? Ask you that?
No, we did the Final Four last week. But,
give me your. It can be any team. It can be K-State.
It's not going to be K-State. We lost 5.
Okay, fair enough.
It's crazy. I like Wichita State. Yes, I know they lost this week to Bradley, but Bradley beat Kansas State, and Kansas State beat West Virginia. So that shows you the parity that is happening in college basketball. I like the Shockers in Wichita State. Yes, they're from Kansas. Shockers Nation.
That is a shocker. Yeah, I think for teams like Wichita State to win it. Now, I know one year they made it to the Final Four, but if you've looked ever since then, they don't really get the respect.
Right.
Like the year they went undefeated into the tournament, they got put with Kentucky as an 8 seed, which Kentucky was playing really good going into the tournament. They got judged on some early losses, and you get matched up against a really hot Kentucky. It happened again against the same type of Kentucky team in 2017. Wichita State started getting hot down the stretch. Kentucky started getting hot down the stretch. They put Kentucky as a 2 seed. They underseeded Wichita State. I think gave them a 10 seed.
Right.
That wasn't fair to schools like them. Like I think that Wichita State team that went undefeated in the regular season probably should have had one of the easier routes. They put them in the same bracket with, at the time, was a top Michigan team and a hot Kentucky team and defending national champions Louisville. So if Wichita State had won, it would have been a very tough route for them.
Air quotes with Louisville.
Air quotes, right. Well, yeah, I think they got that vacated too. All right, Mike, we got to end the show. Thanks for joining me. Matthew Lyle Show. Check us out next time. We are out. Thanks for joining. End of the broadcast. Well, come on. End.